Welcome to the R Readiness Lens podcast, where we're focused on numbers and driven by results. I'm your host, Sheri Radler, and each week we'll take a closer look at practical ways to get your business ready for what's next. From firm planning for the upcoming quarter to finding the right health insurance for your team. Whether you're a small or mid-sized business owner looking for advisory support or just want to better understand your numbers, you're in the right place. Let's get started. So welcome back. In the last couple of episodes, we've been building this foundation. Episode 1 was all about what is the readiness mindset. And in episode 2, we talked about the chutes and ladders of business. Now, these little wins that take you forward and those unexpected setbacks that slide you back. Today, we're going to dig into the biggest chutes out there, and that's when your business is just too dependent on you. This one's personal for a lot of us. For us, readiness mindset is where our businesses and our clients is. It's not that we're ready for an exit and we're not looking for a long-term future. We're ready for tomorrow. We're ready for what comes, whether it is an opportunity or a chute that could set us backwards. It is all about being prepared so when these things come across your radar, you can step forward and address them confidently. So let's now talk about what is founder dependency. Yeah, so for us, founder dependency is really when that founder is that pivot person, that point person that hinges primarily so many of the decisions, everyday actions, and then even their professional and business relationships come through them. For example, the business owner is the only person that signs the checks. The business owner feels that he's the only one that can reach out to the vendor and ask about an invoice. All pricing or hiring information has to go through him for approval. And actually, I misspoke because he's making the decisions. We want to get to the point where these actions are being delegated, handled but elsewhere, and brought to him prepared for their final vetting, review, and decision making. So trying to move that founder a little further down that pipeline within their organization to allow more action to be held within the organization and their team. Then, on the other side, you have operational independence. Operational independence is where your organization has the ability to function without you at the helm of it. This can be a short-term time frame, or we can even look at a long-term. But importantly, if you were not there, actions would still happen, the business would still run, revenue would still come in the door. And that is the critical measure of whether you've created a job for yourself or whether you've created a business. So now I want to take us back a few years to 2020 when the whole world was upheavaled. And back, in that 2020 era when the world was upheavaled, we actually were associated with a firm out of Huntsville at the time that lost their owner during that scenario. And he was an older gentleman, but he was that guy. Everything ran through him. And when he got sick and he went into the hospital, it threw this engineering firm into chaos. Because the questions that were coming to us is, can we run payroll if it's an electronic signature in the payroll system and he's not here? How do we pay bills? So this became a very urgent mindset on how everything was going to happen. We ended up having to get the CPA in there to sign some bills. We had to get an emergency order brought in to have one of his children brought in. So it was these type of scenarios because nothing had been documented, nothing was planned out, that when he was suddenly pulled out of the center of his business, the critical framework of it happened. His team could come to work, but the money could not flow. Let's compare that to a case we're dealing with today. So we're currently working with a client, and I'm going to say again, a gentleman that is probably approaching his retirement years. And when we're speaking to him, like, what is the plan? And one of the conversations we have with our clients is truly, do your people know who to call if something happens to you? Does your wife, your children, your operations manager, they know to pick up the phone and call us? So, in discussing with him about what is his plans for retirement, he's telling us, well, in a couple years, I plan to talk to my operations manager and see if he wants to buy it. However, he has not actually broached the subject. So it's like we really are kind of encouraging him to loop this guy into these future plans because I don't want him sitting over there making other plans. Hey, my boss is getting older. He's probably going to sell or shut down this business. And it's like we want to make sure y'all are both aligned. Last thing we want is his ops manager to come in and say, I've got another job. I've got to look out for myself, not realizing that this opportunity is framed out here. It's just not been vocalized to him yet. So we're kind of seeing a little mismatch of timing, and it's like, we really think you should have a conversation over here. Now, you know this is important, but there are times when we get pushback. People don't want to plan because in some ways it's a reality, but a lot of reasons people plan for the big things. They plan for their weddings. They plan for vacations. They plan for this retirement that is in this misty, hazy future. But we're talking the planning that comes with checklists and it comes with due dates. And now this is the planning that is funeral planning, wills, and business contingency. And this comes with work. And yes, in the busyness of life, this is always the rock that is easy to push down. We can deal with this tomorrow. We'll address it when it comes. But sooner or later, something does happen. For the good or the bad, something does happen. When you have to deal something in a fire, it is never in the best position to do it. And I mean, I take that as even a fight with your spouse. In the moment is never the best time to be making decisions. So when you have the time and you can stop and look and you can frame it out and you walk through this once and you do put some of these checklists. Some of them are one-time reviews. Some of them are actually frameworks and that have to be built over time. But both give you that framework and that structure to run the operations and to be ready when it does happen. When we're speaking about owner readiness and business readiness mindset, we are talking about looking ahead on the horizon and mapping out the journey from where you are now and where you want to be. These can be as small as what needs to happen for you to be out of the office for 2 weeks. Who signs the checks? Who processes the payroll? Who does whatever it might be? Other pieces are larger in scope. Now we're looking toward the future. What do we build to make this be something that if something were to, an opportunity or something to come up, what needs to be done so we're solid? Now we're talking key man insurance policies. We're talking compliance reviews. We're talking biannual business valuation consideration. Things like that that allow you to benchmark yourself against your peers and just shore up the framework of your business. This is a concept that a lot of business owners understand, but in the execution can be a real challenge. So a really good story we have when we talk about delegation, because everyone wants it your way. And just like when you remember when you first got married and you had to figure out how to do chores, and we call it the towel story. You and your spouse, how do you fold your towels? In half and quarters and thirds. Everyone has a different way. What happens though when you first get together, you have one of two ways of dealing with this. You can tell your spouse every time he folds the towels, he's doing it wrong. And probably by your first anniversary, he's never going to fold another towel. Or you look at him and like, towels are folded, job is done, put them in the closet, honey, and move on. And that is really the secret of delegation. We are delegating the outcome. They may not use our same words. They may not exactly do it our way, but are the steps done? Is the outcome achieved? Can you live with the process? Secret of delegation. When delegating, there's a fine line between being too focused and microed into how they're doing it, and then on the opposite spectrum, being too hands off and not maintaining the control or review of the work that's being done. We call it working within the guardrails. So, one, before we really want to delegate anything, we, the person that is delegating, let's document what it is we're doing. What are we doing? What is the accomplishment? And like, I am filing a sales tax return. It needs to be done by the 20th. The purpose is to do this. We then want to document the steps, and these can start as really basic, hey, real fast bullet points. They could be fleshed out later. There are tools available to us that really help streamline this aspect of it. But when we have documented it, so we will not delegate it anything until we have documented. We will then walk our person through our steps. The truism is everyone will nod their head and say, yep, I got it. Walk back to their office, sit down, stare at their screen, and go, what did they want me to do? So the documentation gives them that cheat sheet to go back to and look it up. To go back, because they did hear you, but then they've walked away, and it made sense when you showed it, but now they're staring at the blank screen and they're not quite. So the documentation walks it through. Also, you as the person that's delegating, just like homework, you have to review their work. Double check it. We set up on Fridays. So it's like, okay, during the week you were doing this. On Friday, we're going to sit down. Let's walk through everything you were doing. Did you have questions? Did you have comments? Did you have concerns? Let me see what you did here. We make suggestions, make recommendations. And just over time, you're going to align your perspectives so they are getting closer to how you want it done. I remember a truism from business school, and it talked about when you were bringing someone on and delegating and training the learning curve. And that's why they say hire before you need someone. Because the truth of the matter is, and again, what I recall them saying is that for the first 3 months, you're actually going to be slower. Bringing that person on is going to slow you down to train them. And over the course of the 3 months is when you're going to start seeing those efficiencies that you were wanting. So the timing of the hire can matter in that aspect, but it is delegating. It is knowing what you want to delegate. Give them the metric that they can self-check themselves. Did I do it the way they wanted? Bring it back and show their work and give that constructive feedback that this is, you did great on this, but you missed this point. Let's refine this. So I mentioned some tech, and over the last few years, there have been several that have come out that really have impacted how we develop these SOPs and workflows. Scribe, Loom, and ChatGPT are 3 of the strongest that we recommend in the world. Scribe has the ability to screenshot as you walk through your system. It can screenshot where you're going on web pages to document the steps as you're going through. So think of going onto a state portal and walking through a sales tax return. So you're seeing every step of the process. Chat allows us to walk through verbally maybe a process. Hey, everything that comes in on the payable box by Monday morning is in the box by Wednesday so that the payable report goes out to the client on Thursdays. You can walk that through, discuss it, and ChatGPT will help verbalize it and then can drop it in and develop an SOP. We also use Loom quite a bit. Again, we can document what we're doing on the screen. Loom watches the movement of our mouse. We talk through, just like we're saying, hey, and our next step is this. Take the transcript out of your Loom, drop it into ChatGPT, and ask it to give you an SOP and workflow to accompany your video. And now you have the visual as well as the written notes on that process. Now I have a great story on how we implemented this with a client. We've worked with a client over about the last 7 years to shift his reliance of owner dependency to where he wanted to go. It began as an introduction through his attorney over your books are a mess. You really need to talk to a good accountant. But soon after our introduction, he got one of those phone calls. Hey, your business looks interesting. We're buying in the area. You might be someone that we would consider. So very quickly after that introduction, we started working with him. We threw ourselves into what could be a due diligence consideration. We did not pass. Everything the CP, why the lawyer wanted us there, showed up on due diligence. And owner dependency was part of it. Everything went through the owner. It was him and his partner. There was no accountant, there was no HR, there was no IT, everything. And at this point, these guys were running a $4 million company. They were maxed out. And the books, the financials, the operations were suffering because they were focused on delivery in the field. We got in there, we worked with them. So that first due diligence, like seriously, it set the benchmark because it came back of all the places that did not pass the due diligence. That gave us our roadmap that we then worked on for like the next 4 or 5 years. Now, funnily enough, his phone kept calling. And he's the kind of guy, him and his partner, that they will consider any interesting offer. So we went through 2 more due diligences over this course of time. Kept getting better. Second one, nah. Third one, we got the offer. It was not what they wanted. But hey, we had hit everything we wanted. But that was the accomplishment. We had hired an IT group. He had someone over there that now hired a person in the office that was responsible for that, freed him up out of that aspect. Because part of our compliance was we were probably not registered properly in all the states that he was working in, that he had personnel and was traveling in. So we had identified some exposure for that because they had guys in the field crossing state lines. We went through the project manager. So again, instead of every field personnel reporting directly to the owner, we established a project manager level. So we had 4 project managers that his 17, 22 field managers. I mean, we got 300 employees in the field at this point. So reporting up to 2 people. A lot of owner dependence there, a lot of backlog, a lot of things not getting done because it was being hid in his box. So by putting in this project manager, we were able to winnow it down. Hey guys, you manage the clients. Project managers, you manage your people. Anything that needs to be managed up, you raise it to the partner level and that type of thing. We implemented weekly meetings with those project managers. So again, our partners didn't feel like they were getting too far away from the information because that was one of their big concerns. If I'm not talking to my guy every time the phone rings, how do I know what's going on? Okay, well, now you have a weekly meeting and you run down the list and you get the summary and a very short bite size of what needs to be done, and y'all can decide what needs to be addressed next. So anyway, over the last 5 years, this has been a constant evolution. Lines and credits developed, job descriptions, the HR framework, the legalities, the compliance. We did all of that. Last year in November, we ended up doing a merger with another company in the Gulf region. So our $3 million client had come up to about $12 million client, has done a merger with a Gulf Coast company, and they are now running a $30 million environmental safety entity throughout the U.S. This story is so important because it's a great example of how a business owner overcame that founder dependency we're talking about. Founder dependency holds you back, and it holds you back in about 3 critical ways. We have a bottleneck. One, if everything's going through you, not everything is squeezing through and getting done. Second, your team gets disengaged. I got to wait for the boss to tell me what to do. I'm waiting around. I'm frustrated. They're not involved in the decisions. Therefore, they're not involved in your business. And the third one is just the value erosion. You're not growing your business, you're not solidifying your business, and you are not turning it into what we like to call a transferable asset. So if you're leaving here and you're like, where do I start? What do I do next? Where do I even go? I'm going to say, look around. What do you do this week? What don't you have to do? What can someone else do? Who else can make that phone call and call the vendor, call the bank? Who else can walk out to the shop and say, hey, I need you to do this? Who else can do absolutely anything that you're actually doing? And that is the first place to start. Delegate it. Get it off your plate. The second place to start is take a step back. And when you turn around and look at it, from the step back, ask yourself honestly, am I putting myself in the middle of everything that's happening in this business? Because if you are creating that founder dependency. You are creating that bottleneck. You are saying that your business is so snowflaked that only you can do it. And the truth is, your business is yours. It is a snowflake in that. But operationally wise, these are standard procedures. These are standard questions. These are standard things that come up. And those are the things someone else can do. Only you can drive the vision. Only you can drive the journey. Someone else can push the buttons. So here's the big question. Is your business really dependent on you? Because if it is, that's your chute. And we got to start climbing it back up the ladder so it's not. So this week, pick one thing that you can work on. And we appreciate you joining us for today, episode 3. So yes, if you like this and this is valuable, join us next time because we're going to hold up the mirror. We're going to do the business owner's mirror test, and we're actually going to ask you to look in it, answer some questions, and evaluate yourself and decide. Are you creating a business or are you creating a job? Thanks for joining me on the R Readiness Mindset podcast. If you found this episode helpful, connect with me on LinkedIn and follow along on Instagram for more tips and resources. And if you're ready to take your business to the next level, be sure to rate the podcast and subscribe so you never have to miss an episode. Until next time, keep your numbers working for you and your results in sight.